Okay, where are they? Okay, well, welcome, folks. We'll go ahead and get started here with our press conference and we have a waiting room person. Welcome, Andrea. And we had some technical difficulties here. Our electric went out, so we are now ready to get started on this press conference today with national and local West Virginia folks uh, on why everyone should pay a fair share for recovery and infrastructure proposals. So I wanted to first welcome our first uh, guest here on this press event, and it is the director of the Americans for Tax Fairness, Frank Clemente. Frank will present recent polling that indicates a broad consensus across the political spectrum on having everyone, including millionaires, billionaires, and mega corporations, pay their fair share to enable our nation to build back better. Frank, take it off. And you're on mute.
Thanks, Gary, and glad to be with everybody here in West Virginia. I'm going to put up on the slide on the screen a PowerPoint that is of a poll that was just recently done in May by Hart Research and ALG Research. ALG Research has been President Biden's pollsters during the campaign and also as president. We surveyed 1,100 voters. And what this is not the national survey I'm going to show you. It's a survey of about 443 voters who are from rural America. And as you'll see in the next slide, very heavily Trump voters. And so they're very representative, I'd say, of the state of West Virginia. We have a national poll with a national sample, but I decided to just give you the rural sample today. It's closer to your electorate. The issue environment. So of the folks who were polled, you can see party self-ID was 36% Democrat and 48% Republican. So a very red tilting electorate sample size here. Only 13% were independent. In the 2020 vote, 35% went for Biden and 50% went for Donald Trump. I think the West Virginia vote may have been skewed even more heavily towards Donald Trump, but at least this is a pretty good close sample, probably. And we also asked people how favorable they are or unfavorable they are to former President Trump. And this sample that you're looking at here today was 56% favorable, 42% unfavorable. That's kind of the reverse of where the national electorate is. So I think it's a pretty fair sample of what your West Virginia voters are like. At the beginning, we asked 20 questions about major issues that are before voters and where they stand on those issues or what are most important to them. In fact, what this slide shows what's extremely important to them, extremely important priority. As you can see, reduce government spending, reduce the national debt were highest. You don't see that with the national sample. They tend to not be right there at the top, but because this is a more conservative or moderate electorate, that's why they're there. But the fifth ranked issue was ensuring the wealthy and corporations pay their fair share in taxes. Only slightly below creating jobs. Creating jobs was 40%. The tax fairness question was at 38%. Infrastructure doesn't even appear on here. That's because it was just those voters didn't look at it as extremely important, probably because it's less important in rural America than it is in the rest of America. Helping small businesses at 32%. So the tax fairness message was issue was even higher priority than helping small businesses. We gave them these folks. We asked them at the front end. We asked them, where are you on the Biden plan? We identified the Biden plan. We gave them no specifics on it. And on the left-hand side, you see 42% were in favor, 40% were opposed. That's pretty surprising, even naming it the Biden plan. They don't know that much about it. It was whatever they learned in the news. But then we took the sample and we split it in two. And we asked them about Biden's economic plan. We gave them a lot of details on infrastructure, on how he helps families, how he helps lower premiums, helps people with childcare and housing. And then we say at the end, the plan would cost roughly $4 trillion. So half the sample got that. The other half of the sample got where we said, well, it will be paid for, it would cost $4 trillion, but it will be paid for by raising taxes on corporations and those earning over $400,000 a year. It won't raise taxes on anyone making making less than $400,000 a year. So the folks who just heard the investment side of it, the spending side of it, they favored it 50 to 43. So after the description, without the pay for, but just of the plan itself, the investments, the sample size or the voters went up 10%, 7% more in favor of Biden's plan. When we added the pay for that we paid for by raising taxes on corporations, it went up 21 points with the pay for in there. So in a very conservative electorate, very conservative sample, 55% supported Biden's plan, 34% opposed it, with knowing how it would be paid for. It was much less not where we didn't say how it would be paid for. That just shows the sensitivity these voters have to spending, to deficits, and their comfort with raising taxes on the rich and corporations. We also tested some of the key issues in the Biden plan. On the left third of the slide, we basically asked them, do you support raising taxes on the wealthy and corporations? Very generic, not any detail. By 63 to 32%, they said yes, absolutely. In the middle area here, we asked them, well, very specifically, do you support raising taxes on those earning more than $400,000? 59-35 said yes, we do. And on the right-hand side, we asked them, do you support raising the corporate tax rate from 21% to 28%? And that's 55 to 36, very healthy margins for both of those specific questions about raising revenue. And you remember for Senator Joe Manchin, it's kind of been a big question about whether he wants to go to a 28% corporate tax rate, which he said he wasn't comfortable with, or a 25% corporate tax rate. Here we ask about the 28%, and it's very high support in the state for that. We also break it down a little bit. Here we're asking them about the question about not raising taxes on those making $400,000. Is that important to highlight? And it is here clearly. You can see they find the Biden plan much more favorable if they know that it's not raising taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 a year. 68% like that. The fact that it's confined to the richest Americans. We specifically asked, how comfortable are you with raising nearly $4 trillion from corporations and the wealthy? And 60% overall said they were quite comfortable with that. The plan, we asked, how do you feel about the plan costing $4 trillion without saying how it would be paid for? And you can see that bombs. Very little support among the public for that without it being paid for. This question was very interesting. We asked voters, would you rather have Biden's plan paid for by raising taxes on the wealthy and corporations, or by not paying for it all, deficit spending, essentially, borrowing the money? And this is a great concern of Senator Joe Manchin. Of course, he's basically said he wants it paid for. Well, you can see by 5 to 1, people want this plan paid for by raising taxes on corporations and people making over $400,000, and only 10% said, yeah, let's borrow the money and we'll be happy with that. On this side, we asked about supporting expanding user fees for highways and bridges. We didn't even ask about the gas tax, but by 2 to 1, they said, we don't want user fees, tolls, things like that. If we'd asked, do you support a gas tax to pay for infrastructure, the opposition would have been that much higher. We asked some specifics about Biden's tax policy proposals, raising taxes on the wealthy. You can see all these, more than 60%. I'll just highlight a few of them. The wealth tax that Senator Elizabeth Warren has proposed, that gets 73% support in West Virginia, in rural America and among Trump voters. The first one here, closing loophole that often allows the wealthy to avoid paying taxes on investment gains for their entire lives. That's what the ProPublica reports about these. Mostly the rich don't get paid in salaries and wages. They get paid in, their wealth comes from their increased asset value year to year, but they're not paying any taxes on that unless they sell it. And people here are saying, no, let's close that loophole. And 53% are saying strongly, let's close that loophole. Let's make them pay taxes on their increased wealth every year. I want to show down here at the bottom, the estate tax. Oops, sorry. People often say, people don't want to increase the estate tax. 57% of rural voters are very comfortable with that. When it's the estates being taxed, increased taxes are for states that are $3.5 million or more. Currently, the estates aren't taxed unless they're $11.7 million or more. So people are very comfortable going down to even the $3.5 million on taxing estates. I'm taxing corporations. Right here, right in the middle, raising the corporate tax rate on profits from 21 to 28%, 63% favorite, 34% strongly. All of the options for raising corporate taxes were 55% or better. So again, people in West Virginia, people in rural America, people who are Trump voters, very strong majorities are very supportive of raising taxes on corporations in the specific ways. We asked about this strengthening IRS enforcement to ensure the wealthy and corporations aren't evading taxes. Almost 3/4 of folks say they're supportive of that. And the last two slides are key findings, which would just highlight what I just talked about, and I will stop there.
Well, that's a real eyeful there, Frank. We really appreciate that. I can see that even rural conservative voters seem to really like the idea of paying for the infrastructure as we go and to really make everyone pay their fair share. And our next speaker is Dr. Jesse Ice, who's the Executive Director of West Virginians for Affordable Health Care. And I just want to make a comment real quick that, revenue is not just numbers on a spreadsheet or in a bank account. Jesse will translate what's at stake for our families in the human infrastructure aspect of this revenue debate. Take it away, Jesse.
All right, thanks, Gary, and thank you, Frank, for presenting those results to us. Some people might ask, why is my organization, West Virginians for Affordable Healthcare, why are we so concerned about corporate taxes, right? We believe and we know that if corporations paid their fair share in taxes, our nation could afford to pay for programs that help working families struggling to make ends meet every day. So if you give me just a few minutes, I would love to highlight some of those ideas, because President Biden's plan to increase the corporate tax rate from 28 to 28%, or from 21 to 28%, it's not radical. It's not out there. It's actually quite lower than our corporate tax rate for many generations. But if this were to happen, we could raise over $850 billion that can help working families. That fair share tax revenue can support investments in affordable health care infrastructure, whether it's hard or soft infrastructure, elder care, child care, clean energy, education, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and create millions of jobs along the way to build this sort of economy that works for all of us. And I want to drive home some of Frank Clemente's points that maybe, got lost in our quick time here. But last year, there were 55 of America's biggest corporations that paid no federal income taxes. 55 of our biggest corporations paid no taxes last year. While the wealth of these CEOs and leaders just increased. President Biden's proposal will actually ensure that the wealthy and these big corporations pay their fair share of taxes by eliminating the corporate tax breaks and that encourage jobs to be shifted overseas and things like this. And the plan's also going to help small businesses recover and compete with big corporations by closing loopholes that allow big corporations to avoid paying their fair share of taxes. This will give more support to to small businesses. And again, no one is proposing to raise taxes on working families. No one making less than, according to this bill, $400,000 a year would see a tax increase. And this is important to note, I believe, because, you know, when we think about the supports that West Virginia families need, we're talking about things like the Medicaid cliff, which is that point in time where a person can't make the choice to go back to work or to accept a promotion or work more hours because they will lose their health insurance. And if you think this is a small number, so think about that $400,000 tax limit. If you think this is a small number for an individual right now to qualify, it's in West Virginia, it's $17,609 a year to qualify for Medicaid. And without Medicaid, you know, a worker can go without insurance, they can buy some subpar insurance, or they can go to the Affordable Care Act's healthcare.gov and shop for decent health insurance. And, you know, one of the very, very cool things that came out of the American Rescue Plan in March of this year was ARPA, the American Rescue Plan, lowering premium costs for 17,000 West Virginians on healthcare.gov. So already we've seen these policies help working people, but we still have the pay-fors, right? So at the end of 2022, these help with costs of premiums on healthcare.gov. If you reach that Medicaid cliff, they're going to disappear. But Congress has the opportunity actually to act to increase funding for all sorts of things. So I just really want to emphasize what sorts of programs fair share corporate tax especially, but fair share taxes can pay for West Virginian families. We can offer paid leave for caregivers, whether they're mothers or fathers or grandmothers or grandfathers, aunts, uncles, who need to take time off to care for their loved ones. We can offer that. We can make higher education more accessible. The American Families Plan actually includes 2 years of free community college and also increases the maximum Pell Grant awards, which for West Virginia has helped tens of thousands of our young folks go to college. It gives money for publicly funded preschools. It helps working families find safe, affordable childcare options. It includes a permanent increase to the child tax credit that we saw in the American Rescue Plan. So families will get back as much as half of their spending on childcare for children under age 13. In West Virginia, there are 47,000, which equates to about 13% of children under the age of 18 who are considered poor. The American Families Plan would extend for the next 4 years at least that this child tax credit. It makes the tax credit fully refundable. The estimates are that this extension will benefit 346,000 children in West Virginia, including 40,000 children of color, and it's estimated to lift 22,000 children out of poverty. So we've got, we've got all those. We've got earned income tax credit, child nutrition. All of these things are in the mix. So we call on Senator Manchin and the rest of our West Virginia delegation to support fair share taxes for corporations and for the wealthiest Americans. working West Virginians pay their fair share of taxes. And it's time to make sure everybody else does the same, because corporate tax breaks won't help West Virginia's working families. We need to move legislation that helps West Virginians. And, to Senator Manchin, we would say, and Senator Capito, we know you both care about the people of this state. So what we are asking is that you are true to your West Virginia roots, stand up for what working West Virginians need. So yes, do your best to bring along Republican colleagues and Democratic colleagues to join you. But if they won't, we need in West Virginia our representatives to insist on putting politics behind people, right? So we have to stay standing for working West Virginians. And I really appreciate my time here. So thank you. And I will turn it back over to you all.
Well, thank you, Jesse. That was well said. We really do need to have a really focused approach to a fair tax system here. And our next speaker is Kelly Allen, who's the executive director of our West Virginia Center on Budget and Policy. And she's going to get into the ProPublica report and how indeed not just the Fortune 500 corporations get to pay no taxes, but some of the wealthiest people in our nation. It's been lately revealed that are not really paying their fair share of income taxes. We'd like to take it away, Kelly.
Thanks, Gary, and thanks, Frank and Jesse. We're here to echo the broad public support for the wealthiest among us and corporations to pay their fair share in taxes and to use that revenue to pay for shared priorities that benefit the vast majority of working West Virginians and also benefit those folks that we're asking to pay their fair share. So I believe since Americans for Tax Fairness's poll was in the field in May, we've seen two groundbreaking and really relevant reports released that are really important context for this conversation and really echo what we're hearing from the public. So first, earlier this month, we saw ProPublica's in-depth reporting of IRS data of thousands of the country's wealthiest households over the past 15 years, showing that the super rich often pay a lower effective or true tax rate than you and me and all of us who are tuned in today by legally sidestepping our tax system. ProPublica also found what we talked about a little bit, that unsurprisingly, the 25 richest Americans saw their worth rise a collective $400 billion with a B dollars between 2014 and 2018. And over those 5 years, they collectively paid a true tax rate of just 3.4%, which is far, far below even the lowest federal tax bracket that the rest of us abide by. These records show basically that we have two separate tax systems in our country. One is for ordinary people, working people, the vast majority of us who earn our money through wages and salaries. And then the other is for the very, very wealthy who Frank referenced, who make most of their money through the ownership of publicly traded assets, private businesses, or other forms of capital, and whose wealth and earnings are treated differently or not taxed at all. In ProPublica's own words, in their own reporting, they said that their analysis demolished the cornerstone myth of the American tax system, which is that everyone pays their fair share and the richest Americans pay the most. Instead, we see the wealthiest legally pay taxes that are only a tiny fraction of their millions and billions, even as their fortunes grow year after year. But what we saw during the polling is folks know, I think, the public recognizes that the wealthy and corporations are often not paying their fair share. I think the surprise in this reporting is really that Congress has allowed it to continue for so long, has allowed this essentially upside down tax system where people who work every day to earn their money pay their fair share, but the very wealthy who earn their money through capital income and stock portfolios do not contribute to the very program, services, and infrastructure that they and their businesses also benefit from. And as we've talked about a little bit, the White House's American Families Plan and American Jobs Plans really recognize this fundamental unfairness, and they include critical tax reforms as revenue-raising provisions in both plans. Under the American Families Plan, they would eliminate longstanding loopholes like lower taxes on capital gains and dividends for the wealthy that reward wealth over work. Another improvement would tax unrealized capital gains exceeding $1 million. And it would also restore the top marginal income tax rate from 37% back to 39.6% for incomes over $500,000, which is where it was for well over 20 years prior to the 2017 tax law that lowered it. And just to drive home what Jesse said, these proposed changes would not impact anyone making less than $400,000 a year, which is the vast majority of us in West Virginia. In fact, only 600 West Virginians, or less than 1/10 of 1% of the state's population, would be impacted by these proposed tax changes. While the programs that these revenue increases would fund, including universal paid family and medical leave, improved access to childcare, a permanent increase in the child tax credit, which is a tax cut for over 450,000 West Virginia families, and other improvements would be broadly shared across our whole state population. And beyond the economic and workforce benefits of increased investments in childcare and education and our healthcare system, the American Families Plan would work towards a tax system that raises more adequate revenue from those very people who have seen disproportionate income wealth gains in recent decades, including during the pandemic. And I just wanted to really quickly talk about another report out this month that just kind of echoes what we've been talking about. This was an analysis from Reuters that showed that the revenue measures that the White House proposes to use to pay for the jobs plan, which is the infrastructure and climate side of things, would not make American firms and companies any less competitive with their foreign competitors. In fact, US companies already pay less income tax than their overseas competitors and would likely continue to do so under the proposed tax changes in the American Jobs Plan. And that's because corporations typically pay less than the statutory posted rate because we have tax breaks and deductions that they're able to take advantage of. So this analysis found that while the current corporate tax rate is 21%, 52 of the largest US-based companies actually pay an effective tax rate of 16%. So they're really paying less than the stated amount. And these companies, even under the proposed changes, would still pay effective tax rates that bring them in much lower than their foreign competitors, allowing them to stay competitive despite paying their fair share in taxes. So the American Jobs Plan is another plan that recognizes that our tax code needs to be fixed. Part of that is reversing the corporate tax cuts from the 2017 tax law, which made an unfair system even less fair, and ramping up enforcement against bad actors that we know, given that many corporations paid no federal corporate taxes, many of the wealthiest corporations. And these revenues are going to fund important investments that help us all, including those very businesses. So the bottom line for us is that we can right two wrongs by investing in families and jobs. First, we can ensure that those who have seen their wealths and profits soar during the pandemic are asked to pay their fair share in proportion with the benefits they receive under our system, so that working people aren't taxed differently from those whose wealth is unearned, inherited, or gained through capital gains and stock portfolios. And second, we can ensure that our economic recovery sets West Virginia up to move forward as a state where everybody has the opportunity to thrive by investing in workforce and family supports that will help spur a more equitable economic recovery. And that's good for families, but it's also good for the same businesses and wealthy folks that we're talking about, because we all benefit from a system that works better for everybody. So with that, I'll hand it back to Gary.
Well, thank you, Kelly, for that really succinct and look into the tax system. We really do need to fix our broken tax system. And I just want to wrap up with a few numbers that I pulled from the New York Times article in April that disclosed that over 10% of the Fortune 500 companies don't pay taxes. And these are some effective 3-year tax rates for some very well-known companies that was cited in that article. The FedEx company has an effective 3-year tax rate for the last 3 years of a negative 12%. AEP, American Electric Power, whose power just went off right when we started this press conference, its 3-year effective tax rate was a negative 3%. And Nike, who many of our viewers may be wearing a pair of their shoes, they were a negative 18% over the last 3 years. So that's how broken our tax system is. And I'm going to give one more zinger. Zoom is also one of the companies that didn't pay any taxes, and here we are. Everybody's paying Zoom to get online and do these meetings and things like that. So we really do have a problem. The American Tax Plan would fix that problem, and I think we've demonstrated that with this session today. And I thank everyone viewing to share this video with their friends and neighbors and associates. And again, I want to thank all of our speakers, Frank Clemente from the Americans for Tax Fairness, Dr. Jesse Ice with West Virginians for Affordable Healthcare, and Kelly Allen with our own West Virginia Center on Budget and Policy. I thank you all today, and I think at this point, we'll go ahead and close up this session. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks, Kelly, Frank, and Gary.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Hey, Gag.